kanang mangulikta kag donation or investment pag humana na ang nisod nga bag-o imo rang kuhaon nilang kwarta ihatag nimo sa karaan mao na scam, di ba? Dili kay sa may produkto nila.
There's a transaction, there's an exchange of value.
Yes, na may exchange ng value. Yeah, that is basically.
What if they say I invested amount and the value of I got a blessing in exchange for
pero the blessing that you receive is merely marabag recycle lang bagi kuha ra dito sa
from somebody else.
From somebody else. Wala. Di ba? You are in essence robbing the people na nauhay nimo. Di ba? So mo na naka-scam dia kay kawat man gid siya.
So what about the SEC filing estafa? What is estafa?
Paano na siya kanang that is a criminal case. Actually, ang ilang gitanaw karon is large scale estafa. There's involvement of deceit ba pagpangilad og sa Bisaya pa. Giilad niya ang mga tao. So actually multiple cases na gikan sa large scale estafa, violations of the Securities Regulation Code, kani mga leaders sa mga scam, may possible nga filean ana. So the NBI, our law enforcement is studying na ana kung sa ilang i-file nga charges kay kani manggod sang mga inana nga mga cases you need evidences. Okay, rabi na sa criminal cases inanglan biya ka og beyond reasonable doubt. No? Kinahanglan you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. So dili na siya sayon-sayo. There is a violation of Securities Regulation Code. Possible nga dali ra sila maigo diha. Okay, it's a matter of showing nag-solicit sila investment from the public. Pero kari na kas mga estafa, mga unsa pa criminal aspect
So
na.
that's like because it's very large scale.
Oh, sana. Yeah, I'm not saying di nila ma-prove, but it's just that ang burden of evidence ba needed. So bugat-bugat. And by the way, ang kanato Securities Regulation Code for me, I think mao say giuban sa gisulti sa uban nga lawyers nga it should be amended in terms of penalty. Kay I think or mong gibutang dito. No, or ba. So fine or imprisonment. It should be fine and imprisonment, no? I think ato i-check gani murag kuan ra man gani dili kayo ingon nga dako ba. Pero anyway, pwede man nila kuanon nga pila ka counts, ingon na ba.
Defender. So that confiscation of money, properties to the raided schemes is not allowed under anti-money laundering law. The raids are intended for supposedly for inspection and not seizure of assets and properties.
Dili. What was applied is a search warrant. And basically a search warrant is like it's a mode of discovery. Okay, may mga fishing daw dito ko. No, actually, precisely that is why you are searching. Kaya you know that a crime is committed and you are searching for fruits of the crime. Actually, I've seen a lot of karon daghan nang nahimong abogado. Daghan mga pseudo lawyers. Daghan kayo mag-side-side og mga ingana ba I think nikuha silang lawyers but ila pang hidungag-dungagan ba ilang gituis-tuis bitong istorya. But if you think about it, the search warrant is there. Kita ka and precisely embargo ning mga computers and by the way ang organiko mas daghan pa lang computer kay silang baboy, no? 150 good computers pero kuan na siya. I don't know exactly pila yung baboy pero if you really think about it kanang ipang embargo ng mga computers, mga even money, these are fruits of the crime, fruits of the offense mo nang gikuha na siya. Okay, para nga that is evidence niya. Later on, gi-freeze ilang mga accounts kaning mga kwarta ha. Is easy na may take over ana. And then they will distribute it to I don't know how they will do it kay unprecedented man nga ingon ani bitaw ka. Not really unprecedented but at this scale
with multiple schemes running at the same time.
Yes, different parties.
And then they are being raided almost simultaneously.
So I really do not know.
As the alleged scheme is covered and protected by a preliminary injunction.
And itabo man god is their gipastop sila sa SEC in the name nga kuan daw kanang ni-violate sila sa Securities Regulation Code. Okay. wa man gid sila mahimo nga kuan kay naabiya gid security regulation code nga bawal gid na ilang ibuhat. So what they did is actually if you ibong subayon ang records, the decision na ang SEC nga to revoke. What they should have done is to fight it out dito sa SEC. Mong MR motion for recon baron sila, and then mukat-kat sila dito sa Court of Appeals. Di ba? Pero ang ilang gibuhat, instead of doing that, naka-idea sad ba? Ang ilang mga lawyers. Ninaog sila sa RTC and filed for an injunction there. On say grounds? On the grounds of freedom of religion. I-violate ang mga freedom of religion, that is a constitutional right. Therefore, dapat nga i-enjoin or meaning ipastop ang SEC on what they're doing. Kaya they are infringing on our constitutional right. Amo nakatungod nga sa mo religion. Di ba? That is enshrined in our constitution. So muna ang RTC 35 na-issue sila og injunction. Now, ang SEC does not care whatever you do in your religion. So magtutuwad pa ka diha, inyo pa nang ludan-ludan si Apollonario diha. SEC does not care. Ang SEC only cares about your act in asking investments from the public. Now, once the result is Section 179 of the Revised Corporation Code. No court below the Court of Appeals shall have jurisdiction to issue a restraining order, preliminary injunction, or preliminary mandatory injunction in any case, dispute or controversy that directly or indirectly interferes with the exercise of the powers, duties, and responsibilities of the commissions that falls exclusively within its jurisdiction. So in other words, ang jurisdiction for violation of the Securities Regulation Code is under the SEC. Walay court below the Court of Appeals that can issue any injunction against the SEC. Okay? Kaya ilan man ang jurisdiction. Kung may mga freedom of religion atong giawayan, pwede ka RTC. Pero di man mo issue. Ang enjoin sa SEC is not your exercise to freely kaning practice your religion. Ang enjoin nila is your asking investment from the public without the secondary license. So, gusto ta nilang enjoy ng SEC, dito ta sila sa Court of Appeals.
So why did
not the RTC.
Go to the Court of Appeals?
Amo na yung pangutanang sila ra say makatubag. I don't know if they think nga they cannot seek a favorable judgment there, di ba? Actually, nainindot kaya nga case ang Supreme Court nga gidecidan. Centeno versus Cornelius, decided in September 1, 1994. Okay? I-discuss sa Supreme Court. This was before the Securities Regulation Code. Okay, so if you can look this up, nindot kayo Centeno versus Cornelius. Yan is sulti Supreme Court. In the freedom of religion, the freedom to believe is absolute. Wa may magbuot nimo. Og nagtuo ka nga kaning Ginoo ni, may magpugong nimo na. Gusto nimo simbaho na siya, gusto na nimong nobody will stop you. Because that is the freedom to believe. Okay. Ang second component sa freedom of religion is the freedom to act on one's belief. So, in other words, believe, you act on that belief. So, kana siya, tuo sila si Apollonario Moses, tuo sila ang ilang salvation through pagdawat sa KAPA. No problem. That's the freedom to believe. But the freedom to act on one's belief, that is not absolute. That is subject to regulation sa state. No? Kay ang pinakadali ani nga illustration kay for example, ikaw ni believe ka nga kuan nga Chambo ana Ginoo na. Mo ni mo believe, may problema. Pero once you're in possession of that, unya magitititit na mo diha kay mo ni freedom ni namo of religion.
Because it's in the law.
Because that's freedom to act on one's belief, and that is subject to regulation by the state in order to protect its inhabitants. So kanailang giingon nga that is nonsense actually. Kanailang giingon nga dili amo maning freedom nga nagbilive mi nga umudunit mi sa KAPA. Malangit mi. Di ba? Nya paghuman ami return. That is the freedom to act on one's belief. That is subject to regulation. So in this case, either way you look at it.
So the injunction is void.
Usa na.
Is it void?
Usa sa ni. Mo nilang gipasiatan. Ang injunction ko no, pag hearing ko no kaso, wa ko na niadto ang SEC. Kanang ug ako naghandle ato, no? Of course I will not go there. that is a court without jurisdiction. And when you go there, you're as if submitting to the jurisdiction of that court. So may gid may muto nga dito. O nya ang istorya na sa mga defenders nga grabe pildi gyud kay wa gud dito nga. Oh, kanang injunction na kay it is issued by a court without jurisdiction. Therefore, it is a mere scrap of paper. Anya kanar may injunction mo nay pirming gi kuan sa mga supporter sa KAPA. Amin injunction, freedom of religion, freedom of separation of church and state. Kana nga to duha ka argumento, injunction and the freedom of religion. Bagsak gyud na siya.
So we've talked a lot, no? We don't want to make to give headaches to anybody listening. We want to educate, but still, with a sharp mind.
Okay.
What can you share or like a conclusion or to summarize it all, like, about these scams, about helping the public become more knowledgeable?
Kuan na gyud ni siya. This is a lesson to everybody nga kana bitaw more gyud na gisulti balik yun na the long old adage nga if it's too good to be true mo ba ni President Duterte, more or less it's not true at all. Kay can you imagine, no? Too good to be true, 30% good dako kay na. In fact, I've heard of kuan daghang kung makailas Mindanao, grabe na kayo dito, like ang mga industries
400%.
dito, ang mga industries wa na matrabaho mga tao, naglisod na ang mga companies. I will not mention the industries, manguaog mga workers
Because of the schemes.
because of the schemes. Kay wala,
They just dawat lang.
dawat na wala
Blessing.
mo trabaho pa man mi. Nya katong mga regular nga trabahante dili na mo overtime. Pag overtime mo, di lang ko kay busy ko sa balay ana. So overtime ka nga na kay kwarta. Di ba? So lesson na gyud ni siya sa tanan, not only for the people nga na victimize aning scams, even for government nga kana bang
I think there was a
antay.
report that even the police have invested.
Yes, na-shock gan itong kuan usa sa police kuan kay naa dito for PNP personnel nga linya ba, murag ilang booth ba nga para paspas siguro transaction. Okay, so even the police mga police day nga ni appeal ana. So lesson na gyud siya nya. One of the things nga I've seen also in this kuan, what has happened is kana bitaw Davao City, it has their own anti-scam unit. Yeah, I think nga usa na
Just
aside
Davao City, not the Del
yes, Davao City.
and,
Just Davao City. Kaya nahitabo na mga uday na during the time of if I'm not mistaken, time of President Duterte nga sa scam na nahitabo within Davao City. And from what I've read, nagbutang sila ang anti-scam unit to precisely prevent these scams from happening again. Mo bitaw na nga sa Davao karon, why KAPA office dito? Mo ilang istorya kay kung ano man din sa anti-scam, no? So aside from siguro lesson ni siya not only sa victims but also government, aside from broadening the expanding the rewarding the kuan nga fine and imprisonment niya, aside from that broadening the powers of the SEC para nga mas makakuan gid sila ba dahil
May
magagukod.
more teeth.
Napahingipon gid ba kay ang hitabo nimo coordinate pa man sila sa PNP etc. nya murag kuan pa ba, no? Daghan kay
Takes time.
Initially pag yun, to my frustration, kay nakakita mo ko sa mga YouTube videos, nag-monitor mo ko sa balita online. To my frustration, in some of this inspection, mo na ra ang kuan, mo na ra ang kanang mo inspection nga. Kaning putanaw mi sa inyong papers. Nya, tanaw, pakiton og
business permit.
Articles of Incorporation, pakiton og BIR, pakiton og business permit. Siya, okay ra day kay naka-comply day mo. Unya lakaw. Asa man ang secondary license? Mo bitaw na nga iko nga
That's for the local government.
local government, the DILG in coordination with the local government, the PNP, yanto dito kay wala may at that time selected naman ng SEC representative nga ni uban nila. So in essence wala gid sila kalibutan, I don't know, most likely was kalibutan about secondary license. So ilang gipangita mga permits pa, and in fact ang mayor mga ni sa Tagum ba to nga niingon nga kanang i-comply lang ninyong mga requirements kay para maligal mo. So pag-comply ana nga wa mo ginay secondary license. Mariana, gusto pag yun siya nga illegitimate, no? In fairness to him, basin og wa sa jake about secondary license or inana wa sa ka kuan gyud sa issue. Okay, so mo na nga lesson gid ni sa local government if expand ang SEC nga powers sa una pagkuan nga yan bang dili inana bitaw kadugay
Like shorten the time.
ma-shorten ang time niya.
Remove the red tape,
The red tape, the bureaucracy, nana ya. SEC also needs more manpower. Kay pila ra man kabuok SEC offices sa
per region.
and it's not even, for example, Cebu na I think sa Bacolod na extension lang na sa Cebu. Unya Bohol wala. No?
Okay.
Unya karon in almost every island na may mga scam nag-proliferate. So
7,000 island.
saan na siya pagkuan ron niya? If you write to SEC, the local kuan, for example, Cebu,
Office, they will refer you to Manila.
they will refer you to EIPD Manila. EIPD is Enforcement Protection Investors Protection Department. Everything is centralized in Manila. So why not put EIPD nga maka-act locally
Or
in
something
every
like anti-scam
yes.
group.
Plus pag yun na mo tong ingon nga the local governments i-legislate on na each local government should have an anti-scam unit just like Davao City. Kaya makatabang man gyud siya. The first place ug dili mo makaput up diha. Di wala gyud. Local governments also should be empowered. I don't know, undergo buslag seminar about this secondary license nga. Unsa man din inyong ipang offer diri nga kuan ba ni kanang in line ba ni sa Securities Regulation Code. So it's a lesson for everyone, not only the victims, also for the
Local
government.
or the other government bodies.
Yes, and not only that, kay institutions man no? Government. Karon ang nitabo sa scams, kalaban ra ba churches ra ba ug mga pastors man nagsugod. So usa sa nas issue nga dako kayo, nga dapat unta pastors unta nga ang ato unta motuman ta sa gobyerno pero sa minitabo mao na nooy magpanguno dito mo.
So there was a question, or I don't know, it was another defender that says that even the church has legitimate investment, or did not say legitimate, but they have investments in stock market.
But again, that is just to make the organization sustainable. For example, it's not something kaning hidden from the public that the Roman Catholic Church is one of the biggest investors of certain banks and certain companies, di ba?
But they are illegitimate.
Yes, it's not
unlike
regard
the other religious ones.
Ang ilang mo reason diya nga, kung ginabalik sa mga tao, inana,
there's no blessing.
There's no blessing kuno. So naaman na sila ilang kibuloy ilang igon si kibuloy kay naaman na siya iyahang mga for whatever reason na iyang ministry naaman sa iyahang expenses or whatsoever. Problema na yung mga membro na pamimbre sila diha. Ang KAPA mo mabitaw na nga, I think Kibuloy was interviewed also. Sakto man iyang point nga ug di ka taga-ag 30% na blessing, magpamembro ka kani Apolinaryo. Di ba? Di ka magpamembro ni Apolinaryo. Why? Yeah, kadiha not because of religion. You are there actually because of the money. So dapat lang mo sud gyud ang SEC ana.
So I think that's a good, very long conclusion.